Welcome to Keep the Game Beautiful podcast. Each week, I highlight incredible people who are doing amazing things in soccer, the beautiful game. I'm Anna Turi, your host. Thank you for listening. In today's episode, I talked to April Heinrichs. Pretty cool, right? As I chat with April, it's very obvious that she's paved the path for the women's game. It's like the expression standing on the shoulders of giants. Now, April's one of the giants, and the younger youth players like me are standing all on her shoulders because she's done such an amazing job paving our path. You can tell she's super passionate about the game, and she has loved to see where it is going and where it has already gone to. Some kids my age have probably never heard of April before. Everyone should be grateful that she and other amazing women made soccer what it is, because I know I am. And I had such a great time talking to her today. Now, this is an interview that I'm super proud of. It's very conversational, and it's really kind of a style I'm trying to work towards more in the future, and kind of what I'm trying to do right now, but we're working on it. This is one of 12 interviews from the United Soccer Coaches Convention, so I hope you look forward to the next 12 weeks of amazing podcasts with amazing people, and even after that, we have a few more. Keep listening to this one and stay tuned for next week, because this is some pretty great stuff. Today's guest is April Heinrichs. April is a pioneer and a leader in our game. She's recognized as one of the world leaders in the women's game. She began playing for the U.S. women's national team on their 4th game ever, which was also their first win. She was the captain of the women's national team in 1991, the very first World Cup, which the United States brought home. She began to coach collegiately in 1990 before beginning coaching the U.S. women's national team as an assistant and is the head coach from 2000 to 2005. In 2003, the U.S. women's team lost in the semifinals, but in 2004, the team recovered and earned the gold at the Athens Olympic Games. Most recently, she led the technical study group at FIFA during the 2019 Women's World Cup. It is such a great honor to be with you today. Could you tell me a little bit more about your soccer story?
Sure, Anna. Thank you for having me. Really well done on your introduction, by the way. Did you write all that?
Some of it.
Some of it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, my soccer story started as a kid. When I was 5 or 6, I had a lot of energy. My parents wanted to put me in sports just to channel that energy in a positive way because I was a crazy young kid. So I started playing soccer when I was young. And I was also playing basketball, running track. I played softball, baseball, played tackle football with the boys in the backyard. We used to wear helmets and shoulder pads. And so all sports were my passion, but turned out I was a little bit better at soccer than all the other ones. And also went to college on a basketball scholarship because nobody recruited me out of high school. So I went and played basketball for a year and then was still playing with my club team and was young enough to play with them. And so during my freshman year in college, I traveled to the East Coast, played in a tournament, and a coach saw me play, and he recommended me to the University of North Carolina coach. So I feel really fortunate that I was just young enough to keep playing. I felt fortunate that one coach recommended me to another coach, and that coach followed through, and I played for Anson Dorrance for 4 seasons. And he was also the national team coach at the time. So, just one thing led to another, and the next thing you know, I'm playing for the national team.
Did you think the women's game would grow as much as it has today?
Honestly, back in those days, when you're a player, when I was 14, I wasn't thinking about growth of the game. I was thinking about how to play, who to play, when to play, where to play, how to get where I wanted to go. I was thinking about how could I use this game to get a college education? And that was probably all I thought about. Once I graduated from college, and sort of for most people, their career ends at that point, if they make it to college, I thought to myself, what am I going to do now? And that's when I started thinking about growing the game or contributing back to the game that has given me so much. I got a college education through it. I played for the national team because of it. So looking back, we've come a long way. It's amazing how far we've come. Looking forward, there's still a lot of things we can do better.
So in my podcast, Keep the Game Beautiful, I always ask the same 3 questions.
Okay.
So first, what does the beautiful game mean to you?
Gosh, Anna, it means the world to me. It's who I am, it's what I do, it's what I love, it's my profession and my hobby. It's the connection I have with all of my friends, my deep friends, my social network that I'm friends with, but maybe not deeply. There were times where it saved me from other distractions in life. And there are times where it buoyed me, and it's a gift that just keeps on giving. You know, I joke that if I was to write a book, it would be Soccer Saved Me.
What are actions or things you do to keep the game beautiful?
Spent a lot of time talking to coaches about coach behavior from the sideline. I spend a lot of time talking with coaches about how to motivate, inspire, and coach, because coaching really is, it's not about correction, it's not about criticism, it's about coaching the game and inspiring young people to reach for their goals. So that's something that I feel passionately about, that there's a better model for coaching from the sidelines than we sometimes see on the sidelines. There's a better model. The trouble is the loud, aggressive coaches get most of the noise and the attention. And I look at Jill Ellis, our most recent national team coach, and the way she coached from the sidelines. She coached to make an adjustment or two. She is legendary for her preparations before the game and before the tournament. And at halftime, making a few adjustments, and during the game, making, an adjustment here and there. But there's no shouting, screaming, drama, or when Jill's coaching, it's not about her. It's about the players. So I really enjoy that model and trying to share that model with other coaches.
How do you encourage others to keep the game beautiful?
I think it's become, in my lifetime, it's become from a hobby and a game that we all played to a competition to being all about winning to even now about a business and a money-making business. And so just in my short tenure with the game here in the U.S., I've seen it go from soccer at its purest form, where we're all playing for the love of the game, to soccer being a money-making venture for a lot of people. Think about it. There's somewhere around 10, 11,000 people at this convention, which is a really small number compared to how many people are involved in the game back all over the U.S. But most of the people here are making money off the game. So what I try to remind people is it's game. Don't forget it's game. We all came to the game for the oranges at halftime and the fun, laugh, giggling, joking environment that we had when we were 5, 6, 7 years of age. So whether you're coaching the senior women's national team or you're coaching 10-year-olds, make sure the start of the session's about fun, the meat of the session's about having fun, and the final game includes having fun. So I try to redirect everybody to remind them it's about the love of the game and the fun for the game, and that's why we came to it, and that's why we're going to stay. And don't ever be somebody's last coach.
Mm-hmm. So when did you decide you wanted to coach?
After I graduated from college, I was playing professionally in Italy, and I had just come back from Italy. The season ended, and the William & Mary coach called the University of North Carolina and said, "Hey, what's April Heinrichs doing? Would she like to go into coaching?" And I had somewhat had plans of always going into coaching, but I thought I would be coaching really young people. And suddenly I have this coach asking me if I'm willing to go into coaching. So I went to William & Mary, did an interview, coached for 2 weeks at the College of William & Mary, and knew I wanted to do that for the rest of my life.
Was there ever a time where you were playing and coaching at the same time?
Yep. In fact, there was. From 1987 to 1991, I was a club coach and a national team player. And then I was a professional player and a club coach. And then I became a college coach. I actually coached at Princeton University and the University of Maryland while I was still on the national team.
How were you able to balance that?
Yeah, it was a challenge. At Princeton, I played with the boys. So after we did our training sessions on the girls' sessions, I moved over and played with the men. And at College of William Mary, I also played. I was coaching the women, but also playing in with the men. So that's how I supplemented my training. It was hard, you know. I wouldn't change my era for any era, but it would be nice to be a part of today's era where they're totally committed and not trying to make a living, having a job, and training for the national team at the same time. Again, I wouldn't change my era. I loved my period, but I found a way, you know.
How did you see the game develop over your career?
I remember when I was a college coach at the University of Maryland, we all had we all had a recruiting list, and it was 50 players. And every coach in America at the time had the same list of 50 players. We all wanted those 50 players. Now the list is probably 200 or 350 players every year. And so there's so many more players. There's so many more clubs. There's so many more colleges. We actually are one of the most populated Division I sports. We have 333 Division I soccer programs. But we have 300 Division II, 300 Division III. There's NAIA colleges. So we have about 1,000 soccer programs where you can go to college. I always tell young people, if you want to play college soccer, there is a place for you. It's just on you to find it. And find the right fit. So when I look back, it's changed. It's bigger. It's moving faster. Technology is improving players quicker. Better coaching is helping players develop better skills at a younger age group. They're able to deal with the ball. Today's generation's able to manage the ball and use 2 feet and have their head up and make great decisions under a split second of time. So it's just growing athletically. It's faster, quicker, more physical, more fitness is required. So it's just evolving quickly.
Do you think technology and social media is helping kids or almost hurting them?
I love technology as a tool to help young people see themselves play. So in golf, they have this term, if you can see it, you can fix it. If you can feel it, you can fix it. Golf is a very biomechanical sport, so you can, the ball's not moving, you can put a camera near it, you can analyze it, make it super slow motion. So for years, video analysis was very difficult in soccer because it's an outdoor sport, so the camera would get rained on. It's a sport where the ball's always moving, so it was hard to video. Super slow speed biomechanical analysis was not reasonable in terms of price. It was a very difficult camera to buy. It was very expensive, and it took forever to download super slow motion video. Now you can have super slow motion video, and I could watch you kick a ball, film it, and I could give it back to you in 10 seconds. If you feel it, you can fix it. If you can see it, you can fix it. So we can take that also to team analysis. Now we have a camera up above at a stadium or on a iPod. Watch yourself play at 14 years of age. If I can show you some video clips, I can download that video onto my computer in seconds. I can open my laptop in seconds. I can show you the replay of yourself, your run, your tackle, your header, your movement. I can show that to you immediately. So video's never been more accessible and quicker, easier, faster, and cheaper than it is today. I can show it to you, and now you're seeing things third person almost. That'll help you develop quicker. So I think technology in the game is really helping the game. Social media, I don't know. I'm not a super big fan of the social media. I think it puts young people in an isolation mode where they're on their phone and thinking to themselves and analyzing and not communicating. Like you and I are looking at each other in the eye, right? We're nodding, We're connecting. We're going to walk away from from each other with a real human impression. Technology, you don't really know what's happening on the other side of that phone or that social media. So I have my suspicions that social media is going to prove not to be great on your generation. So be careful, beware.
Okay. So you had mentioned playing a lot of sports when you were younger. How did this help you when you went on to play soccer?
Oh, yeah, great question. So playing American football and basketball and baseball helped me read the flight spin of the ball. So when you're playing baseball and you're catching pop flies, we used to do a lot of a game called 500, and I just caught a lot of pop balls that were... You're reading the flight of the ball. You're reading the spin on the ball. When you're playing basketball, you purposely spin the ball times. You see the spin on the ball. You see it come off the back rim. So you're reading the spin and the flight of the ball. That helps you in soccer in terms of any ball played in the air. So whether you're getting ready to catch it if you're a goalkeeper or punch it, if you're getting ready to head it as an attacking player onto goal, or if you're getting ready to head it defensively to get it out of your own goal, you're reading the flight of the ball. That's as important as how you actually make contact with the ball. So I found all those sports really helped on the reading the flight of the ball, and that's one of the things today's generation doesn't do. They're not multi-sport athletes, so they're not reading the flight of the ball. And zonal defending, I learned zonal defending playing basketball, and I was one of the first college coaches to use zonal defending at the collegiate level. And so almost at least the basis of most systems of play today are first zonal. There's a lot of marking within each zone, but it's a zonal concept. So what I knew from basketball taught me how to teach zone defending in soccer. Doesn't matter what sport, Anna. It doesn't matter what sport. Let's call it a combat sport, right? Where there's two teams going after it, there's a point system. The first principle of attack is penetration. Right? So if you're playing football, you want to get the handoff from the quarterback and you want to get in behind that front line. If you're the quarterback and you can throw it over the linemen and the linebackers and the defensive backs, you've just bypassed three lines with one long pass, right? So it's the same. So the principles of play, pressure, cover, balance in defending, same principles. So it doesn't matter the sport. So I always say the principles of attack and defending in soccer are the same as any other sport. If you understand the principles, doesn't matter what system you're playing in, doesn't matter what position you play in, you can adapt.
Do you think there's a certain age people should prioritize one sport over the other?
Not an age, but a moment. So there's a moment when a young girl is playing soccer and basketball, say, and she's starting to feel like, I'm running all over the place. My parents are taking me to soccer tournaments and basketball tournaments, and I'm playing twice a night, or I just tore my ankle apart because I'm maybe playing two sports at the same time, and that's dangerous. Or I feel like I'm really connected with my soccer teammates, but I don't connect with my basketball teammates as much. When the player feels that moment, that's when she should decide to play one sport. Not the parent, not a coach telling you, hey, if you don't come to practice 4 days a week, you can't play for me anymore, right? Or the coach that says, why are you playing basketball? You should choose and make a decision and come play soccer. I know there's moments where an adult pressures kids to make those decisions. I think preferably it should be a player-driven decision, and you know it when you face it.
How do you think you could prevent overuse being multi-sport athletes?
Moderation. I think one of the dangers, we're one of the only countries where a player at your age might play for 2 or 3 teams at the same time. You might play for your club team, your high school team, your ODP team, an USYS ID2 team, and your basketball team, and run track or indoor track all at the same time, right? So we're one of the only nations that does that, and that's a lack of moderation. Trying to do everything all the time because parents will drive their kids everywhere and kids want to do everything, and I think that's where we get the dangers of injuries and overuse injuries.
So what was it like to be playing at the women's national team and then come back and coach for them?
I moved from being a player to an assistant coach, and that transition, I think, at the time was very smooth. The players respected me. I had good relationships with them. I was a good conduit for the head coach. I was so passionate about being a coach and learning that I was very green and wanted to learn everything I could, and it was an easy transition. Well, when you go from being the assistant coach to the head coach, it was a tougher transition because now you're making hard decisions about players' future. It became a little more personal. The longer I coached the senior women's national team, the more difficult it became because you get connected to them. You don't want to have to leave players off a roster. You don't want to have to tell a player that, I'm sorry, you're not going to make the Olympic team. And so that got difficult, more and more difficult the longer I was in the position. So it was a rather difficult transition from being a player to the head coach role. And, if I could go back, I would do some things differently. There was a lot of things I unlearned during that. Of course, I can't go back. But I think listening to people and being a great communicator was a skill I probably didn't have at that time. And I value the art of communication now more than I ever have because of it.
So how were you able to develop your communication?
I think like a lot of things in life, trial and error, Hey, Anna, I'm sorry. Come into my office. Let's talk about your position on the team or your role on the team. I'm sorry, but at this moment in your career, you're not ready to make the Olympic team. For me, that was a very direct style. And for some people, that was too direct. So you just learn nuanced ways to communicate with people. And I don't think you can ever underestimate the value of being more gentle early on rather than direct. Being honest, of course you have to be honest. Eventually you have to tell players they're going to make it and some that they're not. But taking your time, learning how people are different, and communicating in a way that's very empathetic. I understand you want to make the Olympic team. I understand you wanted it this moment at this time. And being empathetic to the fact of how much they're hurting when you cut them.
What advice would you give to a young coach right now?
Ask more questions, listen more. I think those are two of the most important things. Around that young coach is a lot of knowledge. But sometimes people are afraid to ask questions because it might appear as if they're weak or they don't know. But actually asking people what they think is a real compliment, asking people what they think is insightful, asking people what they think will show you that there's not one way, there could be 3 ways to do something. So asking more questions and listening more. I think the coaching field is filled with a lot of charismatic people. And being able to, I always say having the gift of gab serves a lot of coaches well because they can talk. Actually, it sounds like I have the gift of gab because I'm talking forever right now in your interview, but this is not my first interview, right? I've answered questions before and I love talking to young people. But there's a lot of coaches with the gift of gab, and that serves them well in a lot of ways, but you have to be a good listener because I have to figure out what motivates Anna. I have to figure out what's your internal motivation, what are your external motivations, what are your personal challenges, what might be holding you back. And if I'm gabbing all the time, I'm not learning from you. What might help you?
So you said you loved talking to young people. Why do you love it so much?
I don't know, they give me energy. They remind me what I was like at your age. They remind me why we played the game. It wasn't to be professional, it wasn't to make money. We played the game because we loved the little black and white ball. Well, sometimes it's pink now, but we liked it. So I'm currently working with 9 to 12-year-olds, and I am inspired every day by them. I look forward to go to training with 9 to 12-year-olds. I am watching them learn so quickly. Young people learn quicker too. Right? Once you're in your 30s or 40s, it's harder to grow. So watching the growth so quickly is very rewarding.
Could you take a second and talk about the technical study group?
Sure. What do you want to know?
First of all, just tell everyone that's listening what it is.
Yeah, that's a great question because I don't think Americans are familiar with the term TSG or Technical Study Group. Technical Study Group in Europe is very common. Every country has a technical study group or a technical study report that comes out. Every European, the UEFA generates a technical study group report after every European tournament, no matter the age, 17s, 19s, or senior women. And FIFA does the same thing. So FIFA will write a technical study group report after every Youth World Cup, 17s, 20, and after the Women's World Cup and after the Olympics. It's a report written by coaches that are in the stadiums observing that tournament, that World Cup. And it's usually 4 to 5 coaches from all over the world watching the games, coding the games live with video editing software, analyzing the video after games, and making notes on observations, trends, tendencies. You know, the Spanish will play in a 4-3-3, the English will play in a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, or, you know, we're seeing a lot of high pressing teams. We anticipate at the next World Cup there'll be some low block teams. So we write our observations, but then FIFA has a team of experts that work in FIFA in video analysis, performance analysis, physiological analysis, and we blend those soccer experts with those technical, physical, technological experts, and we write a report on the World Cup at every age group. And that report's online, live, and if you click on it, you can get video that we showed today at this conference. And that video is available to anybody for educational purposes. And it's amazing video. There's 9 cameras. There were 9 cameras in every stadium at the Women's World Cup this past summer. Super slow motion, up close, behind the goal, you know, from the sideline, from the end line, up close. I mean, you can see things you can't. We don't get to see that in women's soccer very often. So the report is supported. It's human observations supported by the data and the science, and available to everybody.
Why should someone go look at them and learn from it?
I think the most important thing, because a lot of what happens in these reports, it's senior women that are professionals. So how can we link that to Anna back at home, to you back at home? How do we link it to you? Well, what position do you play?
Goalkeeper.
You're a goalkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, in this World Cup, it was the best performance we'd ever seen by our goalkeepers. Mm-hmm. Goalkeepers saved 24% of all the penalty kicks taken. So 1 out of 4 penalty kicks were saved in this World Cup. That's a great stat for the goalkeepers. Goalkeepers' use of short passes was up by 10%. Goalkeepers' pass accuracy at short, medium, and long range was the highest it's ever been. Goalkeepers are showing that they're now 2-footed, not just in receiving with one foot and playing it out with the other foot, but receiving with both feet and playing it short, medium, and long with both feet. So literally, in my lifetime, we now have goalkeepers that can support the play behind and play a long ball with their opposite foot. So this analysis is something you could take and watch these clips and go, I need to work on my opposite foot at home, because if I want to play at the next level, I got to be able to receive with both feet and play it long with both feet. Maybe I can support my team a little bit higher, because I saw this video on the technical study report where the Japanese goalkeeper was about 15, 20 yards behind her back line. Or there's a video clip of Sarah Buhati from France coming in, ball got played behind. She was so decisive. She came up and cleared that ball before the attacker could ever get onto it. I got to be aggressive off my line, right? Or catching, punching. So I think this video inspires young people. And I think, there is a danger of a coach of 14-year-olds trying to take those tactics and coach them with 14. No. It's see those things to reach for and start you or your team or your age group that you're working with on a plan to reach to that level.
So why do you think goalkeepers are beginning to get so much better with their feet?
I think there's been, it comes around. There was an era where early on goalkeepers played a lot with the team in training, and then goalkeeper specialists started to bubble up all over the world. And so then goalkeepers always got pulled away from their teammates during training to coach with that one goalkeeper coach. So we were coaching the goalkeepers in a vacuum, in a silo, all by themselves. And then it's come back around to say we need to incorporate and integrate the goalkeepers in all the training sessions. Not have the goalkeeper standing over there and having some coach throw balls to the goalkeeper. Not having that goalkeeper sitting off behind the goal doing stuff while the team trains. Incorporate the goalkeeper in every aspect of the training. And now the goalkeepers are good with both feet. And of course they still have to be good in the air, and they have to be good at crosses and all of that.
Do you think it would be beneficial for teams like local clubs to do TSG kind of stuff?
Yeah. I like the phrase peek under everybody's tent. So if I'm a club coach in Michigan, I'm kind of wondering what Michigan Hawks are doing. And I'm kind of wondering what's going on in Detroit, If I'm in Southern California, I want to know what all the other clubs are doing. And it goes back to asking a lot of questions. So I think a model that's been missing here in America is TSG model. So let's send 10 coaches to Germany and spend 3 days in Germany and learn all about their style of play, their methodology of coaching, how they coach their goalkeepers, how they're doing their analysis. And then Germany maybe comes back here and brings 10 coaches here. We could do that quite easily in America. We have the resources, we have the coach. But why couldn't we do it at the club level? Send 4 club coaches to Colorado and learn about what Real Colorado's doing, because Real Colorado was one of the best track records of producing female youth national team players. So your club could send 4 coaches over to Real and see what they're doing, and you could invite Real to come back to your club team. Do a technical study report and share it with everybody in your club.
So what might you think the coaches see between the differences of America and Germany?
There's a long history of coaching education in Germany. So I think if you go to Germany, you would see more age-appropriate coaching at younger age groups. So coaches that have a skill set to coach 6-year-olds and coach 6-year-olds age appropriately, and have a variety of skills that apply to those 6-year-olds. And I think you would see in Germany how there's a difference between coaching a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old. And that coach has the age-appropriate skills for coaching 10-year-olds. And by the way, at roughly under 14, it's gender neutral. So coaching of young people below 13, 14 years of age, it's the same. The game's not that different. So learning, there would be different methodology of coaching. I think we would see fewer players on the same field with more coaches in Germany. So sometimes our coach-to-player ratio, think about it, golf is a 1-to-4, 1 coach for every 4 athletes in golf. Tennis, 1 to every 3 or 4. In soccer, it's like 1 to 12, or in some cases 16 or 18. Or you'll go to a field and there'll be 3 teams on one field that's 120 by 70 yards. So it's just too many players. When you're packed in on a field, you can't coach position specifically. So I think in Germany you would see that the coach-to-player ratio would be higher. And that means good feedback, good monitoring, good mentoring of young players. And you'd see better number of positional training, better number of amount of players on a field, and it would be more position specific after about 13 to 16 years of age. So we're coaching 16-year-olds now how to be a 6 or how to be a 2, right? In America, we're lagging behind on those kind of principles.
Do you think it's important for kids to play co-ed for as long as they can?
Yeah, that would be great. I think it's a great model. We've gotten away from that. My generation played a lot of mixed soccer. We call it mixed soccer. My generation got away from it because we were fighting for the right, in a way, to play soccer and generating more. If it had a boys' team, we wanted a girls' team. But now that we have the right, the ability, or the structure, or the league in place for elite players, again, below 12 to 14, I think they can mix in quite easily. But for our elite players, that's a nice way to help accelerate their development. If you were a 14-year-old that was extremely good in your area, but you weren't feeling challenged, you could play up a year or two in your club or go play with boys. Both are a great option.
Did you think that as a young woman, you would have the opportunity to officiate, coach, and even have a pathway to play pro in the U.S.?
Never even occurred to me. There was no pro league. There was not even a profession called being a female coach. I got paid $6,000 my first job. I was happy with $6,000. In fact, I made sandwiches the other half of the day for my other part-time job at a sandwich shop. So yeah, I never saw any of this coming. This convention, 11,000 people meeting in Baltimore, never saw it coming.
How important is it to you to now see young women want to become coaches?
It warms my heart. I think the numbers are still way too low, Anna. Mm-hmm. Less than 10% of club coaches are female. Less than 1% of clubs are run by women, or directors of coaching are women. At the college level, in the 70s, we used to have 74% of our coaches were women, and now that number is less than 27% now. So it's not going in the right direction. So we need to have more people go into coaching.
How do you think we can get more women coaches?
I have a mantra. I say recruit, retain, reward. Got it? Yeah. Recruit, retain, reward. So recruit women. You have to encourage them. You have to recruit them. It's just like college recruiting. Come to my university and play. Same with recruiting women to coach. Come become a female a coach of women, a coach of girls. You'll see you'll love it. So you have to really work hard to recruit women to come into coaching. You have to reward them because they have other interests. They have other things that are pulling at their heart. And, a lot of men will just climb the ladder and try to make it to the highest level possible, where with women it's more about a rewarding experience. So rather than bring a woman into your club and ask her to coach 3 teams, maybe you ask her to coach 1 team and get to know one group of players really well for 2 years. And it won't burden her or bury her or dominate her life. She has balance. Women have more balance in life than men do. It's a generalization, but generalizations are often, there's a lot of truth under there. So, and then you have to retain them. Once you get women into the game, we can't let them go. A lot of women retire at 40 years of age. That's like when you're at your best. But they want to start to have a family, or they feel like they've been coaching for quite a few years and they've sacrificed their children's development, or they're on the road too much, or they're missing their family. So we've got to retain them by different ways, not just paying them financially well and equal, but also saying, I'd like you to coach an age group where you don't have to. So like if I had a good female coach and she was coaching my under 19 club team and she was traveling a lot and she's just starting to get burned out, she wants to quit, I would never let her quit. Never, never, never let her quit. Hey, coach our 10-year-olds, you don't ever have to travel. Right? Mm-hmm. Coach our 6-year-olds, you don't have to deal with the parents. Right? So there's a lot of ways. So that's part of the retention, retaining these people. And retaining women in the game, not letting them quit. Don't let them, quit's not the right word, not let them make the decision to withdraw from coaching. Keep them involved, retain them. Recruit, retain, reward.
Who are some of your mentors in the game?
I had the luxury of having Jill Ellis. You know Jill Ellis?
I don't know her, but I know of her.
You know of her. Good point of clarification, Anna. Jill was my assistant coach. I coached Jill in college, and then her father came up to me and said, I'd really like you to work for me. And he owned a soccer academy in the area. Come over and work for me, I'll mentor you. So I was like, okay. So I took a step, what a lot of people would perceive as a step backwards. I went from college coaching to club coaching or academy coaching, and he ended up mentoring me. And he was an amazing mentor for a young coach. So he's the first one that ever mentored me and gave me guidance on how to coach. I remember the first time he ever gave me feedback. He goes, good session, April, but you kind of have monotone voice. Do you know what that means? Mm-hmm. It's like boring. Mm-hmm. So I was like, he just called me monotone. That's like a synonym for boring. So I had to figure out how to have more personality as a coach. That was one piece of feedback he gave me. Another mentor, so he mentored me for a couple years and, of course, for many years on. And then Jill became my assistant coach. And we were very close friends and challenged each other. So as a young coach, there weren't a lot of women in front of me or older than me as my role models. But having a female that was my age, that was my equal, would challenge me mentally, she was a role model too. So we kind of mentored each other that way. And then Anson Dorrance was a really great model for me in terms of coaching. The way he coached me as an athlete was spot on. So what I learned, and he coached me differently than he did Mia Hamm and differently than he did Karen Gabera or Michelle Akers. We were all coached differently. So I learned a ton about the game from him and how to train women and and connect and communicate with women differently. So he was a great mentor for me as well.
Who were you a mentor for?
I don't know. You have to ask them. I don't know. It's an interesting question because you only know it after the fact, I think, where they come up and say, oh, you really helped me in this situation. It's not like you formalize a relationship and say, hey, I want to mentor you, Anna. Okay, yeah, that sounds good to me. It's more organic. So it's hard to say who I mentored. I'd like to think there's some people out there that feel like I contributed to their growth and development as a person and a coach and treated them well.
So I was walking around the exhibit hall today and I saw a few businesses run by women. So the sport has always had family businesses, but did you see a pathway for women to found a business like Duke Tig, Footy Board, and Technique Football?
Yeah, it's a credit to these women to say, look, I feel like I have something I can contribute that is going to offer something to people out there in the game that's never been offered. So Technique Football is a good example from Yael Averbush. She has a real love for technique and sharing technique with young people and the ability to link it with video and link it with an app that targets people your age. And she's been creative enough to say, this is something I want to do, I'm passionate about, and maybe I can monetize it and get it to more young people. Because your generation's so visual, right? You want to see things in video. You want to be able to access it quickly and on your phone. And your phone's like a little computer you carry around. So I certainly do not have that business acumen or that vision for the business side of the game. Mine's been more technical, but I commend all of them for doing it.
Okay, so I think we've made it to our final question. So the final question is, what do you hope people remember about your impact to soccer and the world?
Oh my gosh. Whereas all the other questions have been quick and easy, that one's a little tough. When I was younger, I'm not sure I'd fully embraced this idea of being a pioneer. Because I always thought, all that really means is I'm older. I'm first because I'm older, not because I'm necessarily good or separating myself in any way, but I'm just older. And so I never really embraced that concept of being a pioneer. But, the older I've gotten, the more I've sort of realized, well, somebody had to be first. And somebody had to be older, and somebody had to, plow the snow forward so we could clear the path for others. And somebody had to be out there and take those risks and model a coach, because if we don't ever see someone that looks like us, we don't think it's possible. So I think I'm proud of that now. After many years of reflection, I'm proud to be a pioneer in the women's game. I'm proud to have been a part of the generation of women that I played with and coached. And we're ready. I think our generation's ready to pass the torch to the next generation. That's what this event is always about, is looking for the next talent to take over. So I think I'll look back and say, I had a heck of a time. I enjoyed doing what I love. As I said, it wasn't a job, it was a hobby. And oh, by the way, it took me all over the world. I have friends all over the world. I've seen the world. And all because of soccer.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for all your amazing questions.
Thank you. Now, that was pretty dang cool, wasn't it? April Heinrichs, one of the biggest names in soccer. So I loved learning a little bit more about the technical study groups. That's something I didn't even know existed before this, not gonna lie. So it was pretty cool to learn about it and hear a little bit of what she had to say. And during this upcoming high school season, I'm excited to look a little more into using that and focusing on a little bit more of the technical study group kind of work. So that's going to be pretty fun. And I learned a lot more from this too, and I hope everyone else did. And until I see you next week, remember to keep the game beautiful.